The greatest power you possess is your ability to choose. Join Lowe's Moore as he reveals how you can begin to maximize that power by exploring yourself on the deepest levels and committing to making lasting and positive changes. Get ready to achieve breakthroughs that will lead to accelerated growth and transformation, because you are now tuned in to The Blueprint.
Why they actions contradict the lamb. I'm fellowshipping when I'm with the fam. That's more relations, that's forming a phonic.
Good evening, and welcome back to the Blueprint Podcast. This is Lowe's Moore, and I'm coming from Fayetteville, North Carolina. Right, I don't know where you guys are at for this Memorial Day weekend. Right, we could say Memorial Day, but it didn't get here yet. So now it's, instead of one day, now it's like 3 or 4 days. Some people take off Friday. They find some excuse to take off Friday, get that 4-day weekend, right? But yeah, it's Memorial Day weekend, right? And I'm in North Carolina along with my lovely wife. I mean, as you can see over there, and we're at my sister's house, and we are enjoying ourselves with them. They moved down here last August, right? They moved out of Mount Vernon and came down here to join her brothers. My brother Curtis is here. My brother Douglas is here. We just left my brother Doug's house. He had an amazing, we're barbecuing over there, fried fish and ribs, all the good stuff over there. And of course, man, I got to mention Daisha. Man, Daisha had some cupcakes.
Oh yeah.
Whew. I mean,
Did you get one?
I did get one, man.
I did get one.
I was like, man, look, I've been eating too many of those things, man, because I'll be rolling back in Mount Vernon. I mean, but yeah, we're here this Memorial Day weekend. Excited to be here. And one of the other reasons we came down, because every year for years now, the McNair, I'm part of my mother, my Aunt Joyce, my Aunt Dolores are part of the McNair family, right? And they had a reunion, 1-day reunion. So we drove down here to my brother's and my sister's in Fayetteville, North Carolina, man, to hang out with them. And then we drove over to Plymouth, North Carolina, my birthplace. Achoo! That's how big Plymouth is. If you sneeze, you will miss it. But we drove back there to the McNair family reunion. As you can see in front of me, man, all the different connections and stuff like that. My grandfather's up there, James McNair, and then of course this is a picture of a few of the people. Of course, I think some of the people outside, in uptown Plymouth, North Carolina. And, of course, all the young people were outside rather than being inside. But, yeah, this is a few people that was at the reunion on yesterday. We had a tremendous time. You got to have reunions, man. We think for the Bushes and the Moores, we were there on yesterday. And there go my mother, my Aunt Dolores, my Aunt Joyce, man. Of course, we were in yellow, the McNairs. And it was just very nice. I enjoyed myself. I met some people, and I think we had a cousin, right? I think we had a cousin. He's 93 years old. You could see him down there. He got the yellow ribbon right around him right there. And Alfred.
He's done some great things in Cumberland County, if I'm not mistaken. They said he's in the Hall of Fame for agriculture. And some big title. Mm-hmm. But you have some folks there that lawyers. You have a major singer, nurses.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, everybody just doing their thing in the McNair. I think it was the Davenports and who else was Davenports, McNairs?
And you have of course, Davenports and McNairs. And let's see. Let's go back to that list. Did it say their last names on there? No, we can't see them.
Nah, okay. We can't see him, but yeah, I'm sure that some of you guys have probably scheduled a family reunion around this time. 3-day weekend, 4-day weekend. Man, we just had a great time. Hope you guys are enjoying yourself today. And I know I am. I mean, I know my wife is. I mean, this is probably the most relaxed, that she's been. And if she puts her phone down, check this out. If she puts her phone down, she will just fall asleep, just knock out and get some rest. I wasn't bothering her. I was just like,
jokes.
I wasn't bothering her. She was just, just doing her thing, and I was happy that she was relaxing. She would go into the room and lay down, and so I'm excited. I hope you guys are too. And so let's get rolling here. Let's talk real quick. I think we got an anniversary there.
Oh, you're gonna hit that?
Yeah. Oh, 35th anniversary of the Hines. That's Calvin, Buns, and Dee Dee. That's Teresa's sister.
Maki Dada.
Yeah, tomorrow is their anniversary. We figured we get it early rather than get it later.
Yes.
Right? Well, we'll say happy 35th anniversary to you guys, man. Enjoy yourself. Eat something, drink something on our behalf.
Absolutely. And they're pretty awesome. I mean, parents of 3 children and grandparents of 3 children, the legacy continues. And so, excited about my sister and my brother-in-law because they are really special. She usually's on every show, but she said she was making dinner. She'll get on a little bit later. So maybe we'll shout her out and get a little bit later too.
Look at that. There's my pebble.
You got your pebble.
Yeah, I got my pebble. I'm going to drop it in the pond, expecting a ripple effect. And remember that this is just a reminder that this is Mental Health Month, Awareness Month. And we've been doing something around that. We'll talk a little bit more in depth about this as well. And later on the show, hopefully my guests, who was doing an amazing job. He's going to be, he had a memorial bash, right, that he's coming from to join us tonight. And my wife is going to be on as well. And so let's get rolling.
Guys, that was not my intention. So my intention was to do what I normally do, which is to stay behind the scenes and let him do all the stuff. This was my weekend when I said, what did I tell you? Anytime he asked me something, what did I say?
She said, hey, this your weekend. Whatever you tell me to do, I'll do. Like Coming to America. Whatever you like. Whatever you want.
Exactly.
Bark like a dog.
A big dog.
A big dog. Let me see you bark like a big dog.
Ooh. Now listen, look, this is the part of the movie, because you could be assured, girlfriend.
I said Coming to America. Yeah, so let's start out with the word of the week.
Ooh,
word of the week. We're going to talk about the word of the week. I noticed I skipped over the book of the week, so but this is the word of the week. I mean, I've been showing throughout this month, there's been an animation movie that I've been showing. It seems like it's for kids, but I think adults need to pay attention too, as they think about, your children growing up. You have kids, you have grandkids, and they're growing up. This movie kind of gives you some inside or deep details about what a kid may be going through as they grow up. So it was Inside Out 1, and then coming in June, there's going to be Inside Out 2, and it's a little girl going through her early stages of life, being a baby, over in, adolescence, being a baby, and going through whatever she's going through. But they're animation pieces that are inside her brain, right, that are called emotion or emotions. And then I didn't know if you knew this, but we got it is a lot of emotions, a lot of things we experience emotionally, but it's 27 different core basic emotions, right? And so that's a very powerful word. You may be thinking, like, as you get older or when you were younger, You were feeling anger, right? You were feeling happiness, you were feeling joy, resentment. As you grow older, these emotions start to magnify themselves. And so that's my word of the week, right, is emotion, right? And then my affirmation, the Hill and Pierce Harper affirmation moment, quote moment, it says, "You possess the power to change your thoughts. It is the greatest power, the power to choose," by Bob Proctor. We all have the power to choose, right? And so if we're feeling a certain way, you know how powerful music is? I mean, you can listen to music, and some music can just depress you or make you nervous or bring back memories from the past. Or you can listen to some music and get inspiration, right, to change the way you feel or to change the way you think. Also, we have the power, right? When we're thinking one way, we have the power to say, "I'm not going to think that way, and I'm going to choose a word. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to choose the word happy, and I'm going to think about being happy," right? It may be sad, but you know what? I'm going to think about all the wonderful things that are happening in my life that I want to show some appreciation for, and so we can change our thought. We have the power to change our thoughts, right? And that's important too. And then here's the music and movie Anomaly by Lecrae. This has been out a while now, but this is, a way of something that is abnormal, something that is not normal, right? And in Lecrae's book, he has a book also, and inside that book, he talks about all the abnormal things, all the anomalies that came in his life. Very powerful book. All the things because he's a Christian rapper, gospel rapper, and he's talking about a lot of the songs in there about some of the experiences he was feeling emotionally, things that were happening in his life, issues that were going on in his life, and in his book and in his album, he kind of sings and he kind of talks about those things. And then the new movie that just came out on Friday, I'm looking forward to see it because I'm a kid at heart, right? And I got a wild imagination, right? When I was a kid, man, I used to think of all kinds of things, right? But If is like human beings bringing things that kids think about and dream about when they're little that we think are just our imagination, right? They find out that it really wasn't part of the imagination, that those things are real. And so they make those animation or those things that you've been thinking about or imagining, they bring them to life, right? And because we all grew up with our imaginary, anybody out there, raise your hand or put it in the chat if you had I didn't have any imaginary friends, right? But did you have an imaginary friend? Now, I never had an imaginary friend, but did you have something, that you carried around that you like, oh man, this is a pillow, right? Or did you ever play, you get your doll and then you make that doll come alive by making that doll do different things, jump, run, so forth and so on, right? It's imaginary. I mean, your favorite doll, no, $6 million. I had a $6 million man doll, man. I should make it jump over stuff, I felt bad for the army men.
I remember, it's funny. I remember we had a discussion a couple of months back, and we're talking about like certain memories and different things. Like I like to remember like having an imaginary friend. I think the most that I ever had, believe it or not, was a little tiny teddy bear that my Uncle Joe bought me. And it's the only thing that I remember, but I remember when Dee Dee got sick and she had all of those toys she came home with, and everybody was buying her stuff because she was at Grasslands. And we went to the store and Uncle Joe was buying her some big gigantic stuffed animal. And I was sitting there and I picked up this little tiny stuffed animal. So it probably is big enough to fit in my hand. And Uncle Joe said, "You want that?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he bought it for me. And I had that stuffed animal for such a long time, but it was probably a whole 2 inches, maybe. No, I give it 6 inches. It was about 6 inches. and it was a brown teddy bear, and it was really tiny, and it was the only thing that I had from when Dee Dee was sick, and it was yeah. So that's it. But I didn't have no imaginary friends. So,
No?
dude.
No, I mean, my imagination was running wild, man. A lot of Disney cartoons, Looney Tunes, you know. Yeah, nah, I used to think about those things all the time, man. And they, you know, I had a really wild imagination. But, yeah, check out If, right? It's in theaters now. And make sure you check out Anomaly by Lecrae. And then my person of the week.
Ooh, your person of the week.
Yeah, person of the week. I mean, you know, Curly Neal back in the day, right, was one of my favorite. One of the things I liked about, particularly basketball, I like dribbling. I mean, a lot of people like shooting and stuff like that, but I like ball handling.
Not too many people could dribble like Curly, though.
Yeah, I mean, and before him was Marcus Haynes, right? Marcus Haynes was just a tremendous. Before Curly Neal, there was Marcus Haynes.
Oh yeah, I remember him too.
And then Curly Neal took his place because he had the ball head, and he used to dribble around and throw the ball around through his legs. And I just remember whoever had a ball out in the playground, I get that ball, and I started doing that Curly Neal thing, man. Everything that Curly Neal would do, I would do, man. And pass, you know, he started passing the ball around through his legs and stuff like that. You know, I always admired Curly Neal, and you know, as a Harlem Globetrotter. So he's my person of the week. Curly Neal, man. I mean, nobody will ever forget Curly Neal and the Harlem Globetrotters and all those guys, man. So, and then I want to go back to my book.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to go back to my book real quick, right? And yeah, it's God's prescription for divine health, right? And I was on a podcast, I think, last week, and one of the things we were talking about was holistic health, right? And you know, when there's the physical you, right? There's the physical you. Also, then there's the mental you. Right, which we consider, most people say, body, soul, and spirit. We are 3 in 1, right? And so when we are hurting, right, most of the time, you know, your mom and dad, right, is going to take you to a doctor to address whatever happens to you physically, right? And then, you know, of course, way back in the day, if something was happening to you mentally, right? Nobody wanted to go to a counselor, a therapist. Nobody wanted, because everybody thought that if something was happening to you mentally, right, that you were crazy. Right? Oh, you going to see who? A head doctor, therapist. Oh, that boy crazy. And then go all through the school, man. You know, elementary school, middle school, high school, adult, man. People say, you know, you be like we at the family reunion, right? And you know, you bring up, hey man, you seen Dorothy? Nah, I ain't seen Dorothy, but man, I heard she was seeing a shrink. I heard Dorothy was crazy, you know, like, you know, those things that happened in, you know, back in the day, you know. But just like you have a physical doctor, right? And then, of course, my wife could talk a little bit more about it. She got a degree in psychology, which deals with, you know, things that happen in your mind, right? And then psychiatrists, right? All of them, those type of individuals there, right, to help you deal with whatever the issues you had, you know, mentally. Since this is Mental Health Awareness Month, but one thing I want, you know, because I'm going to talk a little bit later about another part of, particularly around youth, in terms of mental health. So I want to talk to my wife because as a social worker, right, probably something that you guys deal with all the time is the physical side or the mental side of patients, right? And I want to know, since you're also an AP, right? Since you're also a Christian, right? Since you also an elder, right? The aspect of spiritual health. That in my book, if you can go back to that book real quick.
The divine.
Yeah. Right. And so God's Prescription for Divine Health by Gloria Copeland. Right. And my wife can attest to this. I mean, she can attest to me. Right. I had anybody out. I'm sure people out there had acid reflux before. Right. I mean, or you still have acid reflux.
Yeah.
And so, one of the things that I wanted to, because when I went to the doctor, and the doctor, man, I had X-rays, X-rays on when I was having this, acid reflux situation. When the doctor told me I had that, and then I was experiencing in my chest and my stomach and all those things. This is back a few years ago. And I wanted to, I asked the doctor. He said, "Hey, he would prescribe me something," and I asked the doctor, "Well, how long will I have to take this?" The doctor was like, "Man, you're gonna have to take this all the rest of your life." Right? And I was like, "What? I'm not good at taking pills," but I started thinking about it, man. Because I was playing professional basketball at the time when it hit me. And then it started messing with my head, man. I was running back and forth to the emergency room. And then I started reading one of Gloria Copeland's book on healing. Right? And of course, there are people who don't have faith, who are not Christian. Right? And so I think we all believe that that God blesses the doctors and gives them ideas and gives them strategies to help us when we are not feeling well physically, right? I think that, God, we have doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists, we have all these doctors to help us when we're not there mentally, right? But then there's the pastor, then there's the church, and then there's the spiritual side of it. And of it. And I started reading Gloria Copeland, not this particular book, but another book she had, a little small book, and I pulled out and I started to read it, and I started to have to believe in some of the things that was being said at that time, and at that time I started to change the way I was eating, right? And then I started to pray, and I started to do prayer and meditation. So talk to me being on, of course, being as a professional and then having to go to church, how you deal with the balance between the techniques you use on your job and the techniques you use, you would use in terms if you were dealing with somebody in the church spiritually.
Well, that's a mouthful. I think you have to always remain truthful. Compassionate, and making sure that people understand that there's help. There are places you can go and people you can go see for help. I believe in prayer. I definitely believe that God is a healer and he can heal every situation and every disease, and I've seen him do it. And I know he can, and he will, but I also believe that, that he also did give people a skill set, for them to work on and to help them with these particular issues. I believe strongly that in ministry and in pastorship that counseling is important because a lot of people seek the pastor, go for the pastor to help them with some of these things. And the pastors, I believe, not only do they need to be prayerful and, on top of, because there's nothing new under the sun, right? but you need to be prayerful about, making sure that you're giving godly counsel, but that at the same time that you also know that there's counsel that people might need, might be a little bit more intensive, or, like you're a pastor and a person comes to you, with an arm that was broken, you pray over the arm, but you're not casting the arm. You send them to somebody to cast the arm. The person comes to you and maybe they say they have to have this, and you make the referral. Something's wrong with my car. You don't go, well, I'm gonna pray over the car, and all 4 of your tires are busted, so we're gonna pray on your tires to make it to South Carolina on them busted tires. No, you say, let's go to the mechanic and let the mechanic fix the tires, right? Mm-hmm. So understanding that there is a need for pastors to know where to go sometimes also. That when Pastor Darren Moore was Pastor Centennial, he would always say, you know what, I can't counsel my own members. He said, but I'm going to refer people to you. Mm. Pastor Bishop Kimmy Covington Johnson has her master's in marriage and family therapy. So if somebody comes to me in the church, I find somebody who I know is not only prayed up, but also has got the skill set. So I will refer them to somebody like Kimmy, right? And I think that's how we take care of each other. You know people that are who are in the Lord, but who are also in counseling, like Chelsea and Janelle, like Janelle Miles in Charlotte, and Chelsea here in New York and Connecticut. They're doulas, and they do a lot of work with women who are having babies, right? So they work so closely with them. So as a Christian, right, I would refer, if a person said they wanted to have a doula, I would refer to them, right? So I guess for me, if you know that I am a counselor, that I'm professional in what I do as far as marital counseling, individual counseling, but I'm also a person that is a person that loves the Lord, you would say, hey, I want to refer you to Patrice because she's got not just the one, but the other person that will refer people to me is Pastor Wheeler, Pastor Jeffrey Wheeler. Like he'll say, listen, I'm going to send somebody over to you. I remember one time Pastor Morris Coleman, he called me, something was going on, and he called me, he said, sis, this thing is real, what should I do, in that scenario? And I gave him some direct advice about what to do in that particular situation, because sometimes, it's okay. Sometimes I think we feel that if we make a referral, for some help outside, that we don't believe that God can do it, or that we may not seek outside help for somebody who really needs outside help. So I believe very strongly in, I'm not going to, hold on for a second. Our battery's getting ready to go. I'm not going to lose sight of that. Can you go on and you talk really quickly, because I got to take care of a power source we got going on over here. So. Okay.
So yeah, I agree with you, and we were having this discussion, right? And sometimes, and this is where I believe that sometimes it could be what's happening to somebody. Sometimes it could be spiritual. It could be physical, right? And sometimes it could be mental, and sometimes it could be spiritual. So you can get a diagnosis, right? And it may need a spiritual answer. It may need a mental or mental health answer, or it may need a physical answer. So that it just it just depends. It may need all three. Right, but I think there's a power of looking at this since this is Mental Health Awareness Month. That there is a spiritual component in terms of health, as well. You know, yeah, there's a physical component, there's a mental component, and then there's a spiritual component. So I think we're looking at some. So yeah, I don't know if you guys out there, you know, and like I was sharing with them when I was, you know, dealing with some things on mentally, and you guys heard me talk about this a few times on the podcast about some things happened when I was having some health issues, and sometimes, man, you know, sometimes they are physical, you know, and the doctor gives you something and you get well, right? And sometimes the doctor, you know, have to refer you to maybe the problems that you have anxiety or you're depressed or so forth and so on. And then they can they can request or refer you to somebody who could deal with you when you're having signs of depression or anxiety or different things that are going on in your life. And then sometimes those attacks could be spiritual, right? And then so you may need you may need the Word of God, right? You may you may need meditation, right? You may need spiritual counseling. So you know, but I just want to kind of bring that to your attention, right? And so yeah, any I want to see any response, anybody with any response out there to when it talks about mental health and how your situation was either addressed by a doctor, addressed by a counselor, therapist, or it was addressed by something that was spiritual. Or maybe yeah. And also I want to say before we're going to enter into another segment, but before then, I want to say that this is the last show of this season. It's crazy, but this is the last show of season 4. And when I come back next week, we're going to be in season 5. Can you believe it? It's been 5 years. I cannot believe it.
It's been 4 years.
4 years?
It's been 4 years. We're ending 4 years, so it hasn't been 5 years yet.
No, but I'm saying we end in 4 and we're about to enter into 5.
Yeah.
Right? And yeah. And any comments out there? All right. Look like my man
I don't have volume. Hold on.
yeah.
Did he send something?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Sorry. How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Good. Happy Memorial Day and happy holiday to all the veterans out there. I mean, it's an honor. We need to honor our veterans at all times.
Yes, we do, without a doubt, man. But I thank you, man, because I think you had an event today.
Yes, we had a concert and we had 200 free veterans that came out to see a free concert. We collected about 200 pounds worth of canned goods, and we had 4 or 5 young people that overcame adversities and challenges to perform on the stage in front of a large audience. So we just came back from that, so that's why I'm in the car.
Garage door open.
Yeah. And of course, you know, we're in North Carolina, and you know, we had the reunion on yesterday, family reunion. It was very delightful, and I'm down here with my brothers and sisters, you know. And I looked up, I said, oh, Steve got an event going on.
Well, you know what it is, because it's Mental Health Month, and I know that all the work that I do is all community based, and it's really about providing a platform for people, young people, older people that have overcome some adversity or challenges in life. So a lot of the folks have had dealt with mental health issues. So that's pretty much what I've been doing for my whole career.
Yeah, yeah. And I wanted to show, I didn't know if I wanted to show a couple of, I want to show something on you real quick if possible. We look like we're working on some technical difficulties here. But yeah, talk to me. I was just mentioning my wife and I, before we get into a subject that I wanted to get into, was my wife and I was breaking down different aspects, particularly in terms of the different aspects of mental health, right? And we were talking about the physical aspect, like what happens to us physically, right? And then what happens to us mentally, right? And then sometimes what happens to us spiritually, right? And so, being properly diagnosed is important, because sometimes we can have something that's happening to us physically that impacts us mentally. And sometimes we can have things that are going on that will impact us mentally that will impact us physically.
Right.
Right.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. I mean, it goes hand in hand. And I think that what happens if there's any kind of challenges or stress or adversity or trauma, that could obviously affect what you do physically. Could lead into depression, poor sleeping patterns, poor eating habits, different unhealthy things. So that can affect your mood and your level of, if it's depression, level of depression. So yes, the things that happen and occur mentally will definitely affect you physically, and physically, if you're challenged with a physical ailment or a medical situation that limits you or restricts you, then obviously that's going to affect you mentally, and your, self-esteem, self-confidence, your motivation to succeed could be hindered by how you are during that event or trauma that's going on.
Yeah, and I was sharing with them a little bit earlier. When I was going through a situation with acid reflux, of course, it was impacting me physically, right? And then it started to impact me mentally, right? And then then it got to the point where, of course, I was seeing a doctor, and a bunch of times, to be diagnosed. And then, of course, they gave me medication. They wanted me to be on that medication for, he said he had people in there 5 years, 10 years, for life, and I was like, I'm not a big pill taker, and then I thought that there was a spiritual attack more than it was mentally and physically, and so there was strategies that I learned through and that I had become aware of in reading the book about God's divine health, and as I started, they also added to it was proper way to eat, certain things that you should be eating, vegetables and fruit and different things like that. And then I started on in terms of meditation and things like that, and then the kind of situation just kind of went away, right? I felt like that God had healed me from that. So so when you look at it holistically, so when I approach something, whatever the issue may be, I approach it from a physical perspective, I approach it from a mental perspective, and I also approach it spiritually, right? I try to approach whatever the issue is holistically.
No doubt, no, that's it. The spiritual component is probably the most important component that a lot of individuals have lost touch with themselves spiritually, and I think that that's where some of the intense challenges come in, because if you're struggling something psychologically or mentally, and or if you're struggling with something physically, and your spiritual foundation is not strong, that's going to lead to a life of more challenges, and the inability to overcome those challenges. So I think just like good health and good eating patterns and good sleeping patterns, spiritual, we have to be disciplined on how we get to that core of within ourselves, to feel comforted, to feel tranquil. And so, if that's the level of spirituality that's needed, sometimes it's going to church, or sometimes it's doing yoga or meditation, or sometimes it's just sitting near the water, or just removing yourself from social media, from TV, from all the distractions that are out there. But we got to find that zone that makes us comfortable and more stable.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And then we were discussing. I was at the Boys and Girls Club, stopped by the Boys and Girls Club as I was driving by, and of course I saw Mr. Johnson out there, and we were having a conversation. And then you drove up, and so talk a little bit about what you do at the what's your role at the Boys and Girls Club? Because we were having a conversation about that.
So first of all, I've had a unique journey with the Boys and Girls Club, because I didn't partake in the Boys and Girls Club when I was growing up. Although I was within the foster care system, so and I bounced around a lot. There were programs that I saw others, involved with, like the Boys and Girls Club. So I've always become, from that experience, I've learned to take that experience and use that in my professional career for all these years. So I had a opportunity to try to open up or to maintain a Boys and Girls Club in Long Island, Hempstead.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, due to all kinds of different things, mostly finances, the club had to close. So when that Hempstead program closed, it was a huge void, because Hempstead, to me, mirrors the community of Mount Vernon. So when it closed, the high school graduation rate was 36%, meaning 36% of the kids that go to high school in Hempstead graduated. That means what? 64% are not graduating, which is very, very concerning at that time. And out of that 36%, only 1% was going on to college. So, and then the program closed. So the trickle down effect in that community was significant, and it still is a huge void. Unfortunately, when that program closed, and that remains the saddest, and the biggest void I have in my professional career, is seeing that thing close. So all these years later, I've been doing my own thing through my chapter's community support services, and doing my private work, and doing advocacy shows like your show, The Blueprint, which is great. I've always wanted to provide a platform for others, to families, for children. So when I got the opportunity, when I was asked to become the mental health therapist at the Boys and Girls Club of Mount Vernon, I was all in right from the get go. First of all, Lowe's, you've been a friend, a mentor to me for over 10 years. And because of your book and all the work that you've done over the years, and your family, you've been it's somebody I've looked up to all these years. And we've had different events together when you released your book. And I've always known about your passion for the Boys and Girls Club, and your how you mentor the young people there. So when the pandemic hit and you started your podcast, I was really excited about that. So the other day when we met, it was really a situation where because you're not part of the Boys and Girls Club formally now. You're still there, but your role in that community is so great. So when I saw you the other day, we were bouncing different ideas off each other. And being the mental health therapist for the Boys and Girls Club Mount Vernon, first of all, only 25% of the Boys and Girls Club in the country have a mental health therapist. So I want to, give props and thanks to Mel Campos, who brought me in on there, because there's wonderful staff there. The staff really is setting the tone for the future of the young people there. So my role at the Boys and Girls Club in Mount Vernon is to coordinate services that the staff is utilizing there, is to working with the boys and girls one-on-one and within group settings to kind of get down to their feelings on how they feel about certain things, to give them a platform for them to talk about their feelings or the different stuff that they're going through. There's a lot of situations that those young people are going through that they simply need to be heard, and not just to be heard, but to have resolution, to have some strategies, how to cope, how to heal, how to deal with a certain situation that they have no control over, or nor did they ask for. So my role is to work with the boys and girls individually, to work with them in the group, and to work with the staff so they have better techniques on how to utilize their strengths and how to, support the young people there too. Because if they're acting out, if a boy or girl is acting out at the club, usually there's something behind it. And when I talk with them, I begin to realize what's behind it. So I've been offering counseling services there. In addition, a lot of the parents are unaware how to navigate through the special ed system within the surrounding schools that they are going to, that their children are going to. So I've been working with the parents how to advocate for themselves, how to advocate for their son or daughter to get the services that they need, because sometimes school districts do not present in a proactive way, due to funding. Sometimes they don't present things because they are there's money involved um, there's money involved with each school district, and sometimes that money is not utilized in the correct way. So me working with those parents, within the last couple of months, I've had 4 parents that were unaware of how to navigate through the special education system, but now they do. Now they are, they went to the CSE meetings, their son or daughter got tested, and now they're getting services. So my role now is to work with parents as well. I don't know. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Oh, no, hold on a second.
Okay.
Can you hear me, Steve?
Now I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can't hear Steve though.
You can't hear?
All right. Hello?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Still can't hear Steve. Huh?
Hey,
Can you hear me?
What?
no.
Do you want me to sign off and sign on?
No, not him. I choose.
Hmm?
The other headphones on. Put the other ones on. Steve, can you talk?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Steve? Hello?
Yes, can you hear me?
You hear me?
I don't hear him. Steve, say something.
Keep talking, Los. I can hear him.
Okay, hold on. Now we got something happened here.
Just make it like that. Can you hear us, Steve? All right, Los, talk.
Hello? Hello? Your computer died. Hmm? Why wasn't it powering up?
Talk to the people.
Yeah.
Okay, show the video. Show the video.
The COVID-19 pandemic may have created a perfect storm, but it also created a profound opportunity to rebuild a healthier tomorrow. Number one, children are uniquely vulnerable because their brains and bodies are still developing. And the outcomes can have a ripple effect from school performance to violence perpetration to homelessness. Number two, early detection and prevention efforts can make a significant difference. Number three, a nurturing parent or caregiver is a critically important resilience factor for children, turning potentially toxic stress into tolerable stress. I want every child to have the opportunity to grow up free from abuse and neglect and to live to their fullest potential. So I'm joining UNICEF to make parenting supports universally available. It's not just good for individuals, it's good for families, communities, and our entire global community.
Let him talk.
Yes, we've been having some technical difficulty here. Steve, you there?
There we go.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
So I don't know what I missed or
I've been talking for an hour and a half. No,
well,
but what I'm saying is the bottom line is my role at the Boys and Girls Club is to work with the children independently and within a group setting to 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 have them develop better coping mechanisms for some of the challenges that they're facing at home, to work with the staff there so they can work with those coping mechanisms, and instead of only seeing the outbursts that they have, to try to get a little more insight into why certain things are happening. And also, I'm working with parents now on how to navigate through the special education system in their respective schools so they can get the services that their son or daughter needs. So within the last couple of months, I've gotten 4 families to go through the special education system and to get the services that they need, that their son and daughters need in the school system. So I'm kind of like the bridge where instead of going from school to home, to the Boys and Girls Club to home, I'm the bridge where I can connect the school life and the home life and connect it with the club. I think that's a missing piece that is really needed in these community-based programs. And like I said earlier, only 25% of the Boys and Girls Club in the country have a mental health therapist.
Wow. Yeah. Do you know what the data is for schools as well?
For as far as therapists?
Yeah.
Well, right now every school, has a guidance department, and every school should have a social worker. But the school psychologists in the schools, some have them and some rotate within the school district. So sometimes, if the population is greater in certain schools, the psychologist is not prepared to handle the increased population, the large population of schools. However, there are a lot of families, like I said earlier, that aren't, they don't have the know-how to get services for their son or daughter. So therefore, they're not getting the counseling or the psychological services that they may need. Or if a boy or girl is on the spectrum with autism, those services need to be, highlighted early on. You can't hear me? You can't hear me?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Is it on my end or?
Just say yes. You can hear him, right?
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm listening. I want to show you something. I want to show you a video. And of course, we were talking about why I think what you're doing is so important at this stage of a kid's life, right? Having young kids, whether it be elementary school, middle school, or high school, why it's so important. And I want to show you this video about what you're doing and the power of it because of early childhood trauma, right? So I want to show you this video, and I'd love to get your comment on it by Dr. I think her name is Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris, right? And check this out.
So many hands raised when we asked that question that many of us have experienced some form of childhood trauma. What are some of the effects that this trauma has on us, even as adults?
Well, I think that some of the effects that we perhaps recognize the most is the impact that it has on our mental and emotional well-being, our ability to connect and develop healthy relationships. But when we experience trauma, especially in childhood, it literally gets under our skin and changes our biology. Because that moment, when you as a child were sitting there knowing that you had told the truth and dealing with your mom as she was harming you, right? Like, we know as children that the role of our parents is supposed to be to protect us. And what happens in that moment, that fear, that terror, that trauma, releases all kinds of stress hormones in our body, what we call the fight or flight response. Right? But if that happens too often, if it happens unpredictably, and most importantly, if you don't have that safe and stable and nurturing adult to help to calm that down, what you can get is prolonged activation of the stress response. And that can lead to long-term changes in the way our brains develop, the way our hormones regulate, even the way our immune system functions, and even down to the way our DNA is read and transcribed. And that is what can lead to not only increased risk of mental health challenges like anxiety, depression, but also a lot of things that people don't recognize. Heart disease, stroke, cancer, diabetes, even Alzheimer's. Right? And so now we recognize that childhood adversity is a public health crisis.
That's important.
No doubt.
Yeah. So can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
No, it's a very, very powerful video, the discussion that they were having, because all kinds of trauma and adversity in young people, if they're not confronted, or if there isn't any type of healing from that, it's just going to be a huge weight in that person in their development in life, which is always going to come back to that deficiency or that adversity or that trauma if it's not resolved. So I think she's spot on when she talks about the how it affects physical aspect of all of us if early childhood trauma is not it, coping mechanisms aren't developed early on from that. So that's the danger, and then the high, you have to be able to assess that early on to work with it and to have that proper thing. Now the challenge comes in though is proper health insurance. So if the school is not picking up on these aspects of a person's childhood development because of the inability of the families to advocate for their sons or daughters, and there's no services, and there's no health insurance for mental health services, well, that's where the challenge comes in now too, because if you look statistically, you were asking statistically, half the country has proper health insurance, and maybe a little less than half. And if you have health insurance, mental health and dental, or even eye and things like that, are not going to be covered.
Yeah. I just thought that what she, when you look at adults today, right, and looking at, I can look at my own childhood and think about some of the trauma that I had experienced during that time. And when I was writing my book, and I was writing on family, right? And because I had gone on to become successful, when I started writing that book and I started remembering, some of the things that happened to me in my childhood, right? I just started crying. Situation I thought that I had moved past, that I had gotten over, realized that the trauma still existed, right? And so if it's not, if nowhere to put that trauma somewhere, right? Then it acts out. You can see where it acts out in people, taking drugs, alcohol, becoming alcoholics, drug addicts. I mean, because some of those things that they experience younger in life, they don't know where to put it at. And so they haven't dealt with it. and so they try kind of pick up things to help them cope, and then again it plays out somewhere along the line in how your physical health is as you get older.
No doubt. And you were able to, maybe you were able to cope with that because maybe the Boys and Girls Club back then was an outlet for you. And you were able to, kind of suppress some of that. And then as your physical ability in basketball took form and the support system that you had, that you created, those feelings were suppressed to the point that your talent was visible at that point. But then I'm sure you had moments in your basketball career, and even when you were younger, that some of this stuff resurfaced at different moments, and or maybe they were suppressed until now. It- you know, you there are people that can overcome some of the trauma, but it's always a part of you. But some people could turn it into a positive force, and some people can't. Um, and so maybe that's where the challenge comes in, because not too many people can utilize the trauma that we go through, that that can be utilized.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I agree with you definitely 100%. You know, and that's why I don't know, it's going crazy here with the technology, and we're kind of working through it, but it's such an important topic, and you know how we are, right? We will say, "Oh man, it's Mental Awareness Month, May," right? And then we go to June and we forget about that it still exists, that these
Right.
things are still actually happening, right? And then there are so many, not just young people and adults that are dealing with these issues all year round, all around the world, not just in America, but a lot of people are dealing with this. And I mean, a kid seeing something on television can traumatize you, right? It could be a movie, something you see on news, right? Who's talking about that, right? Who's having conversations about those things?
I think you brought up a good point before, because the breakdown of the family unit too further. I mean, the the divorce rate is sky high, even where it's ever been before. And when you have a single parent family, and that parent is working one, two, maybe three jobs, that they're not in the home, you know, you know, with their child on a regular basis. So they have to utilize other people, or even a TV set, or allow them to be on a computer because that's their babysitting kind of thing. Or and then unfortunately there's no filter in this stuff. So through social media, TV, anything that's out there, where in the past, in an intact family or a family that is there more often, you could put restrictions on things. You could put those safeguards there. Now, the safeguards are very far and few between. So the young boy or young girl who's going through any kind of adversity is looking at things without an interpretation in a positive way. So even lyrics today of songs, where in the past lyrics could be kind of hidden, you wouldn't even know what they're singing about. But now it's out there graphically, and there's no doubt about what they're singing about. So I think the breakdown of the family unit, the breakdown of society, and since the pandemic, more kids are more isolative. There's more anxiety. There's more people, adults and kids are more independent. There's a disconnect. and that disconnect is widening. It's getting wider and wider. So it's up to us to kind of bring people back to where it's more healthier.
And would you recommend, as a recommendation, would you recommend that in people's training, whether it be a teacher, a coach, that they should be aware? I mean, even employers should be aware of and have the necessary tools, right, in place to be able to be aware that these things exist, even for people that work for you, or even a teacher that works for you, or even a kid that's in the classroom, or like you're doing, becoming aware in the Boys and Girls Club, becoming aware and becoming sensitive to that, what kids may be actually experiencing today. Should it be a part of their training, awareness training?
No doubt, no doubt. And I think the Boys and Girls Club in whole is moving in that direction, and there are training now to unify that. Internally, what I do, I have a referral form. So if I'm not there and there's certain behaviors that are occurring, I'm asking the staff to put the person's name, their date of birth, and a checklist of different behaviors that they're exhibiting, inappropriate behaviors that they're exhibiting in the setting that they're observing this. So they submit that form to me, and I go over that checklist, and it helps me determine where I should begin my work with that individual. And from there, I'm able to establish rapport, get a little more knowledge of why that young person is doing the things that they're doing. But then once we get to understanding, develop a plan so we minimize it or eliminate the inappropriate behaviors or the behaviors that need to be modified. And that information is then shared with the staff so they can go about working with that young person a little differently, or at least getting a better understanding of what they're going through.
Yeah, and there was a statement down here by Mike Hammond, the special ed supervisor at the board, is spearheading a new proactive approach that seems to be working for the students.
And that's the key. That's a very good comment, because there's a fine line of being proactive and reactive. And I think too many of us are reacting to what's going on around us and accepting or accepting the way things are. But if you're proactive, then you're trying to change things. You're taking initiative to make that change, and not sitting back waiting to react to a certain thing. So what's going on there, what Michael is doing, is critical, because we need more parents to be proactive and not just accepting things how they are and not addressing them.
Yes, and so there, I want to show you something real quick. I think you've probably seen it, and some of the people out here when I first started earlier in the month, something that the NBA is doing. If we can kind of go through a few of these slides real quick. Yeah, and because I thought it was very, very interesting when I heard in the NBA doing some things on where it starts out, the NBA on mental health, right? Self-care, protective page, power connections, path of moving forward, which is kind of something you just said, right?
Right.
Yeah, once you come to understanding, there's got to be a plan.
Right.
Right. So then the next slide talks about take a mental health time out. Right. And I like that approach too, that we become aware what mental health is and taking their approach for it. And then the next one I think is self-talk. I mean, how do we how do we talk to ourselves? What are some of the steps, some of the things that we need to address? So I like that as well as a part of it. And then the accountability partner, right? Knowing that we are aware of what's happening, what's going on, right? Who can we talk to? I mean, you know, who can we be accountable to each other? These are some of the things that can be used, you know, like at a Boys and Girls Club or, you know, in school systems, on a job situation. Some of these approaches could be used, and appreciating the journey. I mean, I think it was one of the things that said appreciate the journey. And so these are kind of some of the examples that could be used, you know, in everyday life, you know, youth organizations, community organizations, school systems, you know, actually on jobs and different things like that. So, yeah, very, very powerful, you know, piece. I know you said you had taken a look at some of this information as well.
Yeah, no. What the NBA is doing is very, very important, and it's very much needed. I mean, these kids, the young kids that are talented in basketball, they go to college, and then all of a sudden they're thrown into the NBA. Only a small percentage of people make it to the NBA, and there's not the support system once you get there. Once you transition from high school to college to the NBA, and you got to remember, when the pandemic hit, a lot of those seniors in high school lost their last couple of months of their senior year. They lost their graduations. They lost their proms. They lost the ability to connect with people and say goodbye, to have closure in some of those high school friendships. Because like yourself, the day you graduate from high school, life changes rapidly. If you're going to college or whatever that is. So there's a whole large population out there that lost those last couple of months of high school year. And we as a society and as clinicians have to remember that, we have to look at that, because that's a large group of people, young people, that have a void that needs to, you know, be looked at, and also kids with different physical challenges, developmental disabilities, or even autism. They lost direct services, that they were during that time. And some of those direct services never came back because of Zoom or different things or what have you. So we kind of have to backtrack and get back to the basics.
I like that. And I want to show you, I think we showed it earlier, but it was so much stuff going on. I want to show you, Dr. Burke had another one about, I think she was addressing some of the issues in terms of the pandemic as well, and had a proactive approach to it.
The COVID-19 pandemic may have created a perfect storm, but it also created a profound opportunity to rebuild a healthier tomorrow. Number 1, children are uniquely vulnerable because their brains and bodies are still developing. And the outcomes can have a ripple effect from school performance to violence perpetration to homelessness. Number 2, early detection and prevention efforts can make a significant difference. Number 3, a nurturing parent or caregiver is a critically important resilience factor for children, turning potentially toxic stress into tolerable stress. I want every child to have the opportunity to grow up free from abuse and neglect and to live to their fullest potential. So I'm joining UNICEF to make parenting supports universally available. It's not just good for individuals, it's good for families, communities, and our entire global community.
Yeah, I think she addresses some key points there.
Yeah, no doubt. Again, it comes down to you mentioned it earlier too, Lois, a holistic approach. It's not just the mental strength, the internal resources. You have to be strong internally, the physical part of it, but also the spiritual part. It's three levels here. And I think, even statistically, when families do not have dinner together, cognitively those boys and girls suffer, those young people, because statistically the intellect of a boy and a girl, a young person, increases the more you have family meals together, the more you do things as a family. And since that's broken down, that's what we're already having challenges with that. Then if there's no spiritual component, the discipline behind it, the belief in God, if they're not going to church, or they're not having that time where there's no TV, there's no social media, there's no phones, then that also breaks down, because kids are on their phone so much, and statistically too, the when you're on your phone right before bedtime, that affects your sleep patterns, and it affects your the way you think and the way you transform yourself for the next day. So you're losing insight on how to really connect with yourself if you're on the phone 24/7 or right before bedtime. So limits have to be set, and I think some parents are doing a great job with that, but some parents aren't. And I think phones have been an easy thing to, kind of use for kids to utilize, and for parents, not to really be involved with their kids. It's kind of a way for them to be distracted, which is increasingly becoming challenging.
Yeah, and then I think I was talking. My wife was over here, and we're talking about, sometimes information or revelation, right? Sometimes some things can be revelation, some things can be information, right? And there is always a spiritual, like it's a holistic component. Like we're trying to get the show. We think that this is, as we end this month on mental health awareness, I like to think it was a spiritual component, man, was messing with some of the stuff that was going on today, man, trying not, because sometimes, the powers that are out there don't want this stuff to get out. They don't want this information or this revelation to get out, right? Especially when you say, there's a physical way to deal with this, but also there's a mental way to deal with this, right? That impacts our soul. And then there's also a spiritual way to deal with this. Right. And so that's a lot of times we don't want, the powers that be don't want to hear that information, right? Because they know that information will solve some of the issues that we're dealing with out there. So, I want to apologize for the technological difficulty or stuff like that, but I think we got enough of it in, to have an impact. And so don't be discouraged if you're going through the podcast and technology's not perfect. Steve knows this, I know this, right? Steve been doing a lot longer than I have, right? And but we wanted to get this out in regards to mental health and get it out there, and especially the holistic part of it, because sometimes we can forget about the spiritual aspects of things. We can look at the physical side and what the doctor can do and what the psychologist can do, but sometimes we forget that there's something more powerful than even both of them, and that's God.
So can I mention those two also, because you had asked me and I had gotten was trying to deal with it. I could foresee the technical difficulties coming, and I said, "Oh my goodness, let me step away." But before I do, I wanted to show you, and I'm hoping that I can pull up. We have a conference this Saturday coming up at our church called Hurt, Help, and Heal Conference, right? And so Friday night, it's ladies gathering together. Any ladies that want to come to talk about, and girls and ladies, talk about things that we've been hurt by over the years, whether it be trauma, whether it be whatever it is. But it's really going to be able to let people release whatever hurts that they're having. Saturday, we're going to have a help fair. Not a health fair, but it's a help fair. Anybody who has services that provide help to people in the community, we're asking that they come out. We have the Neighborhood Health Center coming. We have Archway's coming. Arms Acres is coming. St. Vincent's is coming. We have, quite a few different agencies that are coming that we have a Narcan training, a CPR training. So we have a lot of stuff that's going to be happening. Blood pressure test training, blood pressure blood pressures will be taken as well as diabetes. So there'll be a lot of things going on that day. And then Sunday, the woman who's our preacher is actually a PA, physician assistant, but she's also a prophetess, and she has a program called Healing Hands. And so we're going to focus on the healing on Sunday. So we have a full weekend. But it's just to let you know that sometimes even in ministries that we need to seek out services for people to see what's out there, and so we don't care. We're thinking big. We want the community to come out and just let people know that there's services out there that are not necessarily always in the church, but maybe connected to the church because of relationships that they have with people in ministry.
Yeah, and I think that's important and powerful because we need those partnerships. We can't be on the island to ourselves. I mean, I think the preacher needs the doctor, the therapist, vice versa. They need each other, right? In handling some situations. Some situations you can pray and God will do it. Sometimes God doesn't do it, right? And so then you have to go to the other services, whether it's Alcohol Anonymous, Drug Anonymous, whatever it is, groups you need to get in. But the church needs to know that these services can be helpful.
And there's a lot of praying doctors. I mean, I remember Dr. Ben Carson. He had some of the greatest surgeries that a person could ever have. Mm-hmm. He always prayed before he went into surgery.
That's right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I know.
That's right.
Yeah, so I just think it's important. That's
wonderful work that's being done at your church and what you're both doing. And I want to say one thing too. Young people, they want to talk. They want to release some of their stress or trauma. So I think it's up to us as adults, no matter if you're in a therapeutic setting or not, if you just listen, take the time to listen to a young person, that connection is so vital. That what they're saying, what they're experiencing, they want to express it. And if they have that opportunity to express it in a safe, structured way, then you could work on resolving whatever trauma or adversity that they're going through. It's when we don't take the time as adults to listen what the young people are going through, that's when things spiral out of control. And that's when we have to really kind of backtrack and kind of figure out what to do with a certain situation. But I find in the work that I do, especially at the Boys and Girls Club, I've noticed if I just take the time to listen, they want to share. They want to release that and they want to connect. They want a positive experience. They want a positive role model. They want a positive relationship in their life. And I think that is what we all need to do when we're working with young people.
Yeah. And that piece, what you said, along with that is communication. I think everybody wants to say something. I think everybody wants to communicate. I think, some little kid looking at his phone 24 hours a day, right? And that's all he's looking at 24 hours, has something they want to say. They just don't know how to say it.
Right.
Right. And then they're not in a place where somebody's there to break into a relationship, right? That causes for trust to come so that they can open up and communicate to you. Right. And those are very powerful things when you talk about parents. Right.
Right.
Because most of the time when we grow up, we're afraid of our parents. You're like, oh my God, I'm not going to talk to them. They're not going to understand what I'm saying. Right. And I'll tell you, a great awakening for me, man, was the time when I got to high school. And, I used to think my mom was God, that you can, look, I ain't going to say nothing to her, man. I'm going to get punished, man. I'm going to bed early, something like that. But one of the most powerful things that happened to me was in high school when my mom asked me a question. Right? And she asked me a question. I was like, wow. And then it was no longer, because that's what we think of God. Right? We think of God. Oh, God's not going to listen to us. He's not going to talk to us. He don't care about what we think. He don't care about how we feel. He can destroy anything. I mean, he can get rid of anything. Right? But then when you get to the point where now you realize, hey, God wants to communicate with you. My mom wanted to talk to me. She wanted to communicate back and forth. And then our relationship that took off all through high school. Now, I would come home and say, Mom, you know what happened today? Right? That's the same thing that happened with God too, as well. After you realize that He ain't that big bad wolf, right? You realize that, hey, man, that he's a loving person, a loving God, right? That cares about you, right? And so does your parents, right? And so if young people can find a caring adult, right, that can impact their life, man, their life will change.
No doubt. And there's a lot of parents that are doing wonderful things with their children, but I think it's the community-based programs that kind of support what the school is doing and what the family is doing to coordinate that. And so I think that's very important, like the programs like the Boys and Girls Club have to offer.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. So Steve, man, I'm gonna let you. I think you getting on the road here. You on the road?
There's some things up here.
We got a couple of things out here. Let's see what real quick.
Mike was talking about Tori and Kendall and
Tori and Kendall.
and the superintendent and the principals. Yeah.
Yeah, Mike was talking about a number of different things there. It was great.
Yep. Dee Dee was saying it takes time to find a therapist. You can access help now virtually or in person, and she's absolutely right. And I think, like I said, in ministries, I think that every ministry should have somebody in it that can access resources outside of the ministry as well as helps outside. If you can begin to do that, that'll be a great thing. So, yeah. And it doesn't mean that you don't trust in the Lord, because I believe that you're trusting in the Lord and He gives you directions. He gives you people that you could reach out to. So,
yeah, and sometimes you have to be overt, right? You just have to let people know, right? But then there's sometimes you have to be covert, right? You have to learn how to communicate with people where they are, right? And don't throw your religion on them. Don't make them run and hide, right? But sometimes you just gotta be loving. Sometimes the way of your faith is to manifest the fruit of the Spirit, to manifest love.
And it's also important, I think, the reason why I think it's important to understand it in ministries is the confidentiality of it. Mm-hmm. If a person comes to somebody in ministry and they tell them something that's going on, that's not something that should ever go across the pulpit as part of a pulpit discussion, right? It should never, like a sermon, it's just some things that are just off limits, and that people's confidentiality, if they're coming to you and they're having marital problems, you don't talk about their marital problems across the pulpit or to anyone else. And so, sometimes I say to people, what's said here stays here, because I'm also obligated by my license, to not violate a person's confidentiality. And so you can't tell everybody everything. Everybody should not be entitled to your information.
That's very, very important. But most clinicians go by, like, unless it's a danger to themselves or others, you protect that confidentiality rapport with that client or that one person that you're working with. So that's very important. And social media is a breeding ground for everybody knowing everybody's business. So there's no limits, there's no boundaries, and the recipient who is being targeted because they shared maybe too much or they're talking about too much is really now struggling with traumatic situations via social media or virtual. And that's a whole different thing that we're all learning to deal with in the last couple of years, because social media and the isolation anxiety because of the pandemic, we have to bring people more out to communicate, not to go on their phones and to share different things, but to talk. Virtual is important, but also community and face-to-face and doing things together is also important too. I think we're losing sight of that. We have to get back to the basics.
Dee Dee writes, check the back of your insurance card for those of you who have insurance cards for customer service number for helping and finding someone who accepts your insurance, or most places of employment offer EAP for free. And that is true. And again, because of the ministry part, the one thing that I wanted to add is I'm always very careful to refer my members for specific things to someone else, because it also, if I was to get up, sometimes you can get up to preach and God will give you discernment. You preach on something and it'll be about that person's issue, but if that person shared that issue with you, they're gonna think you're talking about them, right?
Right.
But if somebody else, if they went out and spoke to somebody privately and God gave you that message, they might say, wow, you were really speaking to me. about what I was going through, so I would prefer not to know a person's, problem issues so that I can move forward and do what God told me.
Yeah, and it's a matter with all this. It's a matter of trust, right? Who am I going to who can I lend my trust to? Right. I mean, because I found that to be so powerful in the Boys and Girls Club was that, I tell people like, hey, when you build relationship with young people and they start to communicate with you, you have broke down into their trust. Right now, if you break that trust, right, then you lose that kid. Right. I mean, anytime you break down the trust, you lose the person. Right. They no longer feel like they can trust the church, the school, the Boys and Girls Club. And you don't want that to happen, man, because that's the most powerful thing, is that to keep that trust. And that's really what family is about, right? Whether it be your actual family, blood family, or the family you build in the Boys and Girls Club, or the family you build in the school, or the family you build in the community. That's what most people want, is they want that family.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, no doubt. 100%.
So Steve, man, I want to say thank you, man. Let you get back on the road, man. And I look forward to doing this again, because there's still so much more. Yeah, and I see you got we showed some old Chapters Rap, and then now we got the Chapters Network, right?
Yeah, we got a whole bunch of stuff. You can check us out, chaptersnetwork.org. We have 25 shows, one on the TV and radio. I have, just so real quick, 80% of the young people have overcome a disability, so they've been trained to learn a skill set of studio and field production. So 80% of the young people that I work with, have overcome a challenge, but they're really the crew that are making it all happen now. So for me, that's what it's all about, is to providing an even playing field for kids that need a chance or a second chance, or just to be heard and not be defined by their disability or their challenge in life, be defined what they can do in life and their skill set and who they are as a person. Yeah.
So Steve, thank you. Get back on the road, man. Man, love you, man.
Love you too. Thank you, Lois. Thank you. I am just thankful that me and your family have been friends for these years, and I just treasure our relationship and our friendship, and see what you do week after week. It's just been a blessing. So keep on keeping on, and I love you both over there.
I love you too, man. Take care.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. Real quickly, I want to show this last video going off, and I will not be coming back. So I want to say, enjoy the rest of your Memorial Day weekend, right? Some of you probably cooked out today. Some of you gonna be cooking out tomorrow, right? And enjoy it. Enjoy your family, right? I love you guys. God bless you.
And this is the last show of year 4. Again, you guys have been hanging with us for 4 years.
Right, and Steve was one of the guys who helped start this 4 years ago.
Yes.
Right, and I want to say thank you to him again. And we're looking forward to season 5 on next week. We start next week, season 5.
Wow. Well, it's a true blessing. It takes a village, right? So
yes, sir.
God bless you guys. God bless. We'll see you down the road real soon.
Yes, sir. All right. We're going to show and then we're going to end.
All right. And if you make it tomorrow, if you wake up tomorrow.
Yeah, I always say, if you wake up tomorrow, make tomorrow your masterpiece. God bless you, and I'll see you next week.
Tyler, you just got off the stage with the dulcimer.
I did. What is up with it?
What is up with it? You killed it out there.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that.
We are here at Arts in the Plaza, another beautiful Saturday. We have to thank all the promoters here. We are the Chapters Community Support Services and Chapters Network. We're here every Saturday. We have 14 shows on our network, but more important, we pay it forward, don't we?
We do. We're a certified 501(c)(3) nonprofit. We have a lot of charitable efforts going, including Arts in the Plaza, but also with St. Jude, with Long Island Cares, with here with Long Island Cares. always bringing around collecting canned goods.
And during the pandemic, we were out every single day in force. We continue to do that. But coming here is really special. How important was it to film yourself out there?
It's amazing. I always love performing, and to do it in a setting with other artists and other people paying it forward, it's nothing better.
Right. And we have so many great people to thank. I want to thank Benoit, Hippie Chick, want to thank, and Sammy Hoops, want to thank for everybody putting this on, because it's such an important cause. 10 years they've been doing this. 10 years.
10 years.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Right after that, they're bringing out local talent, musicians like Dave, which is amazing. They give you the opportunity to put themselves on stage.
It's so cool about it.
Yeah. Well, if you want to track us down, Chapters Community Support Services, Chapters Network at 516-476-6271. God bless everybody out here.
The Chapters Rap with Steve Vaccaro on Facebook.
And you got your own show with Rachel Barcelona.
I do. The Chapters Rap Meet Hero show every week, every Thursday, 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. on the Chapters Rap with Steve Vaccaro Facebook page. I'm Tyler Gianchetta at Giant Cheddar on Instagram.
Then we're on Optimum Cable and BronxNet and Spectrum and YouTube and Facebook. You gotta check us out. Thank you. God bless.
We really hope you enjoyed this episode of Lowe's More, the Blueprint Podcast. Stay connected and follow us at our website, www.lowesmore.com. That's LOWESMOORE.com. You can also join the discussion on Twitter at Lowe's More and on Facebook at Lowe's More Jr. As always, thank you for pushing your mindset towards a better reality. This concludes the most thought-provoking portion of your day. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast to stay fully up to date with everything we're up to. Until next time, be kind to yourself and each other.
What they teaching is a joke. I ain't buying it like I'm broke. Insufficient funds for insignificant.